Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Mayakoba Data Dive Show. First off, happy Halloween to everybody. Hope you were able to get all of your favorite candy. So put it in chat or put it in the comments. What's your favorite Halloween candy? I know I have mine certainly. We'll put that in the comments later on. But throw it in chat, throw it in the comments. Let's see what favorite candies there are out there. But more pertinent to why we are here, there are quite a few more field changes for this week. But first, I want to apologize to anyone who was watching via Twitch this morning. My stream cut off seemingly out of the blue. I was trying to get back onto Twitch, was not able to. So apologies there. If you were watching this morning, we'll definitely be back online tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We'll get into more of what I am planning on covering, but I wanted to make sure I made a note of the random or out of the blue stream being cut off. That was not on purpose. I just could not get back into Twitch after it crashed. But aforementioned field changes, there are 3 more that I have seen so far. That would be Nicholas Lindheim, Vincent Whaley, and Kelly Craft have all withdrawn earlier today from the Mayakoba. So that makes 6 players in total that I have seen that are not playing at the Mayakoba. So as we go through our rankings in Fantasy National, I will make sure to denote that. But we have a lot to cover. Got a lot done earlier this morning before the stream cut out. So let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best tool out there for your money. It is going to make you a much better gambler and a much smarter DFS player. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media. This is Twitch and Twitter and Instagram. I placed some interesting research earlier today online on Twitter and Instagram surrounding the pattern of winners from previous Mayakoba tournaments. Was covering that earlier today. Got some very, very good info out there for you. So if you want to see that, give me a follow to those links. The link to my Discord server is in there if you wish to get a hold of me for any questions or comments, some advice on lineups or anything to that effect. You can reach me at the Discord server. There's also a link to Twitch, as I mentioned. I will be live tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I will be covering my rookie rankings. I will also be preparing my mixed condition model. That will be in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I will be probably much more laid back. Probably going to jump into a game or two, probably start some side content in that regard, doing some gaming. So if you're interested in that, give me a follow over on Twitch. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. In addition to your favorite candy, put it in the comments, put it in chat. How much have you looked at the odds board? Are there any wagers that you think are pretty good values? I know while I was on stream, I mentioned that there was going to be one player that I was going to fire off a wager on. Did so. Continued my research a little bit later on in the afternoon. Ended up firing off another wager. So looking forward to that, seeing if you all see what I do in a couple of these players. But who do you have your eye on in the outright market? Have you checked the prices on DraftKings or your preferred DFS slate or DFS handling? Who are you targeting there? Perhaps some pivots and some fades. And then what else are you looking forward to for the Mayakoba? Jump in chat. Would love that interaction. But let's get into it. Let's dig into the data for the 2023 Mayakoba. And we start with the Golf News Net. This is a site that I stumble upon every once in a while. Some pretty good stuff, but I mentioned last night that I needed to verify the scorecard for this week's Mayakoba. Well, here it is. The first hole is getting cut off, unfortunately, just due to some camera settings. But this is at 438 yards here, and then I believe you can see the rest of them there. What ends up happening is that the course breakdown in Fantasy National is exactly on point with this scorecard listed on the Golf News Net. Now, it's important to note that we have a couple of holes here that are right on the edge of these breakouts, according to Fantasy National. So, for example, hole 10 is listed right at 200 yards. So that is the one in this set of par threes here. You also have a 450, I thought, could be wrong, no, it looks like it's 451, but you've got a lot of holes here that are right on the edge of these borders that, or ranges that Fantasy National uses, but this is the proper hole composition, at least on the scorecard for the Mayakoba. So we'll definitely be referencing that this evening when needed. So I wanted to make sure I followed up on the promise that I made last night to research the official scorecard for the Mayakoba. Here it is. This is courtesy of the Golf News Net. Do not want to take credit for it. This is via the Golf News Net. But anyway, let's move on over to Fantasy National, and we are going to review a few things, but we've got a whole lot to dig into. We did a little bit of research earlier today on stream over on Twitch, and then we've got a lot of leaderboards to look at as well. So one of the first things that I normally do when doing a quick review would be putting and the surface type. However, we are on Paspalum this week, and there are only 3 tournaments in the database that have putting statistics on Paspalum, at least for the time frame that we use for the field. Now, the WGC Mexico at Chapultepec was on Paspalum as well, but I am not going back into the 2021-2020 season to gather that data. So unfortunately, all we have is the Puerto Rico Open, the Corrales Punta Cana, and the Mexico Open at Vedanta in terms of courses with Paspalum. And only the Mexico Open has putting data on Paspalum. So instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at a strokes gained total view for Paspalum courses, set it back to January 1st, and again, just a reminder, we only have 3 tournaments that were on Paspalum. So, in 2022, your top performers on Paspalum courses have been Ryan Brim, Brandon Wu, Tony Finau, David Lipsky, Davis Riley, Nate Lashley, Aaron Wise, Cameron Champ, Chad Ramey, and Jim Herman. Again, how much of this is tied to putting? Not a whole lot, as you can see. Like Brandon Wu, he has 12 rounds, but only 4 of them have measured putting. That is thanks to the Mexico Open. If you want to see the Paspalum putting, here it is. I would not put a whole lot of stock into it because, again, this is just one tournament. However, your top putters at the Mexico Open in 2022 that are in the field this week were Davis Riley, Cameron Champ, Kelly Craft, Ben Griffin, Brandon Wu, Nate Lashley, JT Poston, Patrick Rogers, Shez Reavie, and Richie Wierenski. So I'm going to bring this note here, make sure I don't say anybody who has withdrawn, and of course I already have. Kelly Craft has withdrawn. So let me redo this here with the proper top 10 that are in the field this week. Your top 10 putters on Paspalum, which is essentially just the Mexico Open, in 2022 are Davis Riley, Cameron Champ, Ben Griffin, Brandon Wu, Nate Lashley, JT Poston, Patrick Rogers, Shez Reavie, Richie Wierenski, and Emiliano Grillo. Again, Kelly Craft has withdrawn. Okay, with that, there are a couple of things we can absolutely look at here at El Camaleon this week. The first is course length. The course is short. It plays to 7,031 yards on the scorecard. It will be short. It has always played short. So, your top performers in 2022 on short courses have been Seamus Power, JT Poston, Ben Griffin, Russell Henley, Keith Mitchell, Brian Harmon, Tom Hoge, Andrew Putnam, Denny McCarthy, he is withdrawn, so Thomas Dietrich, and Eric Van Rooyen. Again, Denny McCarthy has withdrawn. To couple that, we also can look at easy courses. The majority of rounds here at El Camaleon have been easy. So, in easy rounds in 2022, your top performers have been Tom Hoge, Seamus Power, Tony Finau, Maverick McNeely, Andrew Putnam, Ryan Palmer, JJ Spawn, Mark Hubbard, JT Poston, and Matt Kuchar. Taylor Moore has withdrawn. That time I remembered. So, there's a look at a few of the filters and course-specific metrics that we wanted to look at in terms of an overview review. We can also look at strokes gained approach. I need to bring that into July the 1st. Your top strokes gained approach players since July 1st have been Tom Hoge, Jason Day, Lee Hodges, Russell Henley, Mark Hubbard, Ben Griffin, Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, Callum Tarrant, and Russell Knox. All right. So I believe, honestly, that is going to do it for the strokes gained page view at Fantasy National. There are a lot of things I want to cover tonight and to look into prior leaderboards. And since we don't have ShotLink data, there's not a lot we can do in terms of strokes gained. No off the tee, no approach, etc., etc. Although I'm pretty sure off the tee is going to be a big factor. But there are a couple of specific metrics that I want to look at. So we're not going to look at off the tee in general. Although, to be honest with you, strokes gained off the tee will probably be in the final mixed condition model, but a lot of that is going to be very focused on a particular subset of metrics. So let's move on over to birdies and bogeys, and the first thing we're going to do, we are going to check the prior leaderboards and get a feel for what the top performers have done the past 3 or so years. So again, sorted or highlighted, if you will, on the top, 21 or so. John Hunt is the bottom player that I have highlighted here. So you have nobody that is negative in terms of bogeys avoided last year. You did have 2 players negative in terms of birdies gained. One was fairly close to field average, and then one was very poor in the birdies gained. That was John Huh. But nobody was negative in terms of bogeys avoided in the top 21. You had a 10.4, but your winner was the highest in terms of birdies gained. So that does account for something. And then bogeys avoided, a decently high number, but not your winner. You also had a few middling finishes here. You had a clunker of a make cut, and then a middling, but a whole lot of very high finishes in the birdies. Hey, P, thanks for jumping in chat, listening in the car. Not a problem. I always thank you for catching the show whenever and however possible. So thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you have had a very good Halloween, got your favorite candy, avoided any nonsense out there in your neck of the woods. But thanks for tuning in. So in 2022, last year, I would probably give a slight edge to, it's close, I would probably give a slight edge to birdies gained because your winner was the leader in birdies gained. And it was a lot more, I can't say a lot more, it was more correlating to success. It is still very, very close. We look at 2021, birdies and bogeys. In 2021, this is the top 19 due to ties. Nobody was negative in terms of birdies gained, and quite a while too. In fact, everybody in the top 29 was positive in terms of birdies gained. You had a few players here that were negative in terms of bogeys avoided. So much more birdies gained in 2021. Your winner led in birdies gained, and also the strong correlation here between birdies gained and upper leaderboard success. Very, very strong correlation here. Bogeys avoided. Again, you didn't have a 67th, you didn't have a 59th, you didn't have a 30th, so quite a favor for birdies gained in terms of correlation to upper leaderboard success. And then finally, let's take a look at 2020 just to confirm. This is the top 19 again due to ties. Still nobody negative in terms of birdies gained, nobody in terms of bogeys avoided, but the bogeys avoided had a negative higher up than the birdies gained. The top number, an 8.5. You have very strong correlation here. Bogeys avoided was an 8.4, very close, but you also had a miscut up here and a 48th. Lots pointing towards birdies gained, which to me would make sense because the course is easy. If you're on an easy course, the natural inclination is to think about going low, getting birdies, because pars aren't good scores. In 3 years, I've leaned birdies gained in all 3 years. So let's come on over to Fantasy National. And I'm actually going to expand this out to January 1st. I'm going to sort on birdies gained. The first thing I want to look at, let's take a look at who gets birdies on short courses. That's going to be a pretty good indicator for this week, I believe. Since January 1st of 2022, on short courses, your best players at gaining birdies have been Ben Griffin, Seamus Power, John Huh, Tom Hoagie, Adam Svensson, Scott Harrington, Maverick McNeely, David Lingmerth, Russell Henley, and Brent Grant. Not too keen on doing birdies or better, only because when you come into the breakdown, you don't have a whole lot of eagles here. In fact, this 8th hole here, the highest eagle chance, is not in play anymore. The 8th hole is now this par 3. So the highest eagle chance is a 3.5, which is a decently high eagle chance, but it's not the highest. You also have a 3%er. Okay. It's a little bit above average, but there's not a whole lot of eagles here. Just lots and lots and lots of birdies. Let's see. Actually, you know what? Let's take a look at last year's. We'll take a look at birdies or better actual. And we'll get a feel for, let's see. We have a minus 20, or we have 28 birdies or better from Victor Hovland. What was his winning score? A 23? So I wonder if that will give us an idea on how many bogeys there were. I doubt it. There's your bogeys gained. Yeah. I was hoping I could get an idea of how many bogeys Victor Hovland had that would give us an idea on eagles, but I don't see much here in terms of eagles gained. And the reason I'm looking at it is whether I want to look at birdies or better gained or just birdies gained. There is a difference. I'm leaning towards the birdies gained. So though there was your top 10 in terms of birdies gained on short courses. Again, those players real quick: Ben Griffin, Seamus Power, John Huh, Tom Hoge, Adams Vincent, Scott Harrington, Maverick McNeely, David Lingworth, Russell Henley, and Brent Grant. If we change from birdies on short courses to birdies in easy rounds, let's see how this changes. Again, same time frame, going back to the start of 2022. Your top birdies gained players when a round is easy. Those players are Tony Finau, Ryan Palmer, Seamus Power, Matthias Schmid, Matt Kuchar, Tom Hoge, Davis Riley, Ben Griffin, Emiliano Grillo, Scotty Scheffler, and Maverick McNeely. And Danny Lee, excuse me. So a few up here in the top 10 due to ties. Again, Taylor Moore skipped because he is withdrawn. So the overlap here: Seamus Power is in both lists. Birdies when it is easy, birdies when it is short. Tom Hoge, Ben Griffin, both of them are up there when birdies gained for easy and birdies gained when it is short. So definitely going to be looking at that. I'm probably going to be more focused on the short course metric because we know for a fact that this course is going to be short. We have a good inclination that it's going to be easy. It played easy all last year. There are a few rounds of average, so I can't say definitively that it is going to be easy every single round. Generally it is, though. Let's see. Anything else here that we might want to take a look at? We can take a quick look at opportunities. I'm going to take a look at opportunities when it is short and combine that with the birdies for tonight's purposes. So again, I'll just sort on the birdies gained. Let's see. Players that are adept at opportunities, at least. Ben Griffin, Seamus Power. Those are honorable mentions since they are not top 10. John Huh, third in birdies, second in opportunities gained. Somebody to keep an eye on in your research this week. Adams Vincent, Maverick McNeely, Russell Henley. Those four players, John Huh, Adams Vincent, Maverick McNeely, and Russell Henley, are top 10 in both birdies gained and opportunities gained on short courses. Again, Seamus Power, Ben Griffin, honorable mentions here. They are top 20 in opportunities gained, but number 1 in birdies gained. So good stuff here. I am thinking birdies gained. Definitely going to have birdies gained on short courses. Might even have birdies gained when it's easy. Not sure yet. because there's quite a few metrics that I want to consider. So let's move on over to fairways and greens, and we'll bring that up. So last year, this was an interesting research today on Twitch, going through and trying to find what, if any, of these metrics, or which, if any, of these metrics were the most important, especially in terms of prior winners. So you see here, distance, not really that much of a factor. You've got about half and half in terms of players that are positive versus negative in distance. However, in fairways, it was all or nothing, seemingly. Justin Thomas here didn't seemingly hit a fairway at all. You had Aaron Wise seemingly not hit a fairway at all week, but they still had very good performances. But in terms of fairways gained, you had a top number of a 10.2, but your champion, Victor Hovland, was tied for second in terms of fairways gained. Good drives gained was a 9, and your winner led. Greens was a 10.7, very high finish. So in 2022, I gave the nod to good drives gained, one, because your winner led in the category, and even though it was the least dominant in terms of correlation, you really didn't have a whole lot of players that were extremely negative until you got to the bottom end of this top 21. So in fact, if I highlight just the top 14, stop highlighting, get off of there. If I highlight that just the top 14, only 2 players were negative in good drives gained. It was very minuscule. Where you had Justin Thomas very high, missing fairways. Now he did gain greens, so that helped his good drives gained number quite a bit. But greens in regulation were pretty low as well. So I gave the edge there earlier today to good drives gained. We move to 2021. Fairways and greens. Again, highlight the top 19 here. Distance was a bit more of a factor, more positives than negatives. You see fairways here, quite a few in the red, but you only had 3 players that were negative in terms of good drives. Nobody was negative in terms of greens. Fairways was 11.4. Good drives was only an 8.2. Greens was a 12.2, and your champion led in the category. So in 2021, I gave the preference, or the win, if you will, to greens in regulation. And finally in 2020, for Brendan Todd's year, again, highlighting the top 17 due to ties. Distance did not matter at all. The fairways, you had several players that were not hitting fairways at all, but you only had 1 player that was poor in good drives gained. Highest number here, 9.6. Greens, you had a 9.5. So overall, I have been giving the edge to good drives gained, which makes sense. Fairways can be slightly difficult to hit here, depending on wind and whatnot. So the reason why I believe off the tee will matter, wrong thing. The reason I think off the tee will matter, these par 4s can be demanding even though they are short in nature. There's not a whole lot of fairway here. So if you are going to miss the fairway, you need to not be so wayward that you can't at least give yourself a chance at the green. And these greens are pretty large, so I don't think it's going to be greens in regulation. I am more leaning towards good drives gained as the metric I want to look at. this week for the Mayakoba. So with that, let's move on over to this year's field. Again, we are still sorted on short courses. Your top good drives gained players on short courses in 2022 have been Russell Henley, Russell Knox, Hayden Buckley, Andrew Putnam, Marty Laird, Brandon Wu, Ryan Armour, Aaron Rai, Joel Damon, and Adam Hadwin. If we take a look at when a fairway is difficult to hit, and I'm not going to use this filter in the mixed condition model, but it is at least worth looking at because these fairways can get difficult to hit at times. So, your top good drives gained players when a fairway is difficult to hit in 2022 have been Martin Laird, Russell Knox, Brandon Wu, C.T. Pan, Davis Riley, Russell Henley, Colin Morikawa, Aaron Rai, Sebastian Munoz, and Adam Hadwin. Finally, when a round is easy, your top good drives gained players have been Aaron Rai, Colin Morikawa, Hayden Buckley, Martin Laird, Ryan Armour, Tyler Duncan, Andrew Putnam, Sebastian Munoz, Victor Hovland, David Lipsky, and Doug Gim. So you have a whole lot of overlap here from the majority of players. You have Aaron Rai, Hayden Buckley was in 2 of the 3, Martin Laird was in all 3 of these categories. But you do have some players that sneak up here, like Tyler Duncan. If you are putting more of an emphasis on the easy narrative this week, then give a slight bump to Tyler Duncan, as he popped when good drives gained, or he popped on good drives gained when it was easy. Victor Hovland, the same, popped on good drives gained when it is easy. But for the most part, a lot of these players are the same. And again, I am leaning into the less than 7,200 or short course narrative, I guess, or that fact, since we know that this course is going to be less than 7,200 yards. The top 10 good drives gained players on short courses: Russell Henley, Russell Knox, Hayden Buckley, Andrew Putnam, Martin Laird, Brandon Wu, Ryan Armour, Joel Damon, Aaron Rai, and Adam Hadwin. So Brandon Wu popped on 2 of these 3. Andrew Putnam popped on 2 of these 3. Henley, I believe, was in 2 of the 3. So there's an idea of the players, at least in terms of off the tee, I've been looking at early on this week, mainly due to the good drives gained. Another factor that you might want to consider if you want to go with the difficult fairway or fairways difficult to hit idea is take a look at who hits greens still when fairways are difficult to hit. So those players are Russell Henley, Russell Knox, Scotty Scheffler, C.T. Pan, Adam Hadwin, Brandon Wu, Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, Sebastian Munoz, and Aaron Rai. I'm just not putting a whole lot of stock into it because these greens are large. So greens in regulation here are a bit misleading. And you see the green in regulation percentage for El Camaleon is higher than the average tour event. So just not there in terms of greens in regulation. I'm much more so proximity and good drives. So there's a look at what I've been focusing on in terms of fairways and greens. We move to proximity, and this is one that I am very, very interested in seeing. And of course, we don't have anything from prior years. So when we looked at the Pro Visualizer chart last night, and I gathered what the estimated approach shots were using Pro Visualizer yardage, we came to roughly the 125, 150, maybe the 150 to 175. You do have a few 200 pluses, especially because all of the par threes are attackable, they're scoreable. And you do have one 500 plus yard par 4 that's going to demand a 200 plus. So you do have your fair share of 200 plus proximities. But I am still leaning towards mainly these two, 125 to 150, 150 to 175. I don't feel comfortable narrowing down which one, if any, which means more than likely I'm going to default to total proximity. And we're going to take a look. Actually, let's do that now before I forget, because I'm sure I will. Let's take a look here at some previous performances from winners leading into the Mayakoba, and we did a lot of this research earlier today as well. So let me change this view here very, very quickly. So here is your winner, and then this is the Mayakoba statistics from that week. Obviously, we don't see proximity, but we can get a feel for what that champion was performing well in leading into the tournament, or leading into the Mayakoba. So you see last year, Victor Hovland was very strong in terms of 150 to 175 leading into the tournament. He was pretty good at 200 plus as well. The year before that, again, Victor Hovland, I would say pretty darn good at 150 to 175. Yes, he had a negative in the tournament leading into it, but sometimes you just have bad weeks. But again, the 150 to 175, pretty darn solid. Brennan Todd did gain in 2020 from that range, but he was also good from the 200 plus. Same for Matt Kuchar. And the 125 to 150, to be fair to Matt Kuchar, he was good in that regard too. And the 2018 winner, Patton Desire, was good from those three lengths as well. Now, in terms of total procs, Patton Desire was okay. Matt Kuchar gained the tournament before that, but wasn't in the most solid of form. Brendan Todd was fine in terms of total procs, but he generally is. Victor Hovland, fine. Victor Hovland was very good in procs total, with the exception of the CJ Cup right before the Mayakoba. So I wanted to bring this up, have you get a sense of what I have been thinking about in terms of proximities, why I am thinking the proximities that I am. So for this year's field, with no metrics, no filters, just straight procs or total procs since July 1st, being the John Deere, I'm going to sort on total procs and then just kind of scan over to the 2 or 3 proximities I think are going to be in play. So your top total procs performers since July 1st have been Kevin Streelman, Colin Morikawa, Tom Hoge, Ryan Armour, Paul Haley II, Russell Henley, Lucas Glover, Russell Knox, Grayson Sigg, and Justin Suh. If we scan across here, let's see, players that are, I don't know, we'll say top 40 perhaps in all three. You've got Colin Morikawa is top 30 in the 3 links that I think are going to be the most important. Tom Hoge just misses. He's 47th in the 150 to 175, but very good in the other 2. Let's see. Ryan Armour just misses. He's 47th in the 200 plus. Paul Haley II just misses. He's 44th from 150 to 175. Suh, okay. Brian Harman's top 50 in all of them. Okay. Justin Lauer, 43rd is his worst, but he's first from 150 to 175. 26th in 125 to 150. So here are a few players that I'm kind of keying in on in terms of proximity. I'm not entirely sure which, if any, of the individual links I'm going to separate out. I know I'm going to use total procs. 200 plus makes some sense. Again, with the need to score on these par fives would make some sense to single out. 150 to 175 is a bit more of my hunch. 125 to 150 was what Pro Visualizer showed would be probably the most important. So it's interesting. I would love to have or hear your all's feedback. What proximity do you think it's going to be, if any? Do you think it's the 125 to 150, the 200 plus? Do you not think there's any? Do you think total prox is going to be the big deal? Do you think proximity at all is not a big deal? Would love to hear your input. So there's a look at a few of the players that I am keen on in terms of proximity. Let's now move to par threes. And this was a pretty clear sign that the par threes weren't all that terribly important. We saw that last night in the course breakdown as we moved up the leaderboard. Top 10s, top 5s, winners. They just lagged behind. They lagged behind the 5s and the 4s most definitely. Now there are some scoreable opportunities here. You do have some short par 3s, but let's see how much they actually did matter. So last year, again, not a whole lot of upper leaderboard success. You certainly had a few players here that took advantage of them. You have a 6.2 in the terms of total par 3. You've only got one here that measures on the scorecard. That's 2.6. You got a 3.6 and a 2.1. So your highest was in the 150 to 175. Makes sense. That is where 2 of the 4 par 3s fall into. But not a lot of correlating success. I mean, you got a lot of miscuts here. A lot of miscuts. Let's take a look at 2021 and the par 3s. Again, Victor Hovland was, field average, essentially. A little bit under it. Highlighting the top 19 due to ties. Not a whole lot of success here. In fact, your leader was a 4.9. He was a top 25. That's fair. It's good, but it's not anything that demands a whole lot of scrutiny on the surface of it. 3.1, 3.5, 2.2. Again, your leader in 150 to 175 missed the cut. And he played the par 3s pretty darn well throughout the week. How much are these really going to be a factor? I have my doubts. Leader here was a 5.4. Now, in 2020, the par 3s were really important. Look at this. I'll highlight all of the 2.4s, I guess. I mean, you had some clunkers here, but, you come to that grouping there, that's a really, really strong correlation in terms of par 3s. A 2.8, 4.5, and a 2. But it looks to me like I'm not sure which of these is the most important. I don't feel there's a whole lot of need of emphasis in par 3s. And I don't think I'm actually going to narrow or break out any of these. I think it's just going to be strokes gained par 3 in totality. So, since July 1st, your best performers on par 3s: Austin Cook, Adam Long, Max McGreevy, Beau Hossler, Mark Hubbard, Alex Noren, Kevin Roy, Andrew Putnam, Colin Morikawa, and Ben On. Let's see. In the range that I would think would be the most important is the 150 to 175. Number 1 is Mark Hubbard. Ben On's top 10. Adam Long and Austin Cook are top 10. But not a whole lot in terms of dominance across. Maybe Austin Cook, you have a 24th, a 3rd, and a 3rd. It's pretty strong. But nobody else really is terribly dominant. You got Mark Hubbard, 29th, 1st, and 11th. But everybody else seems to have at least one poor range or two mediocre ranges. So again, I'm just not sure how much par threes are going to be a factor. They're definitely going to be in the mixed condition model, but I just don't see them being anything more than 5% right now. However, par fours are going to be important. So let's bring this back to 2022. We saw a little bit of this in Microsoft Excel last night, but you highlight the top 19 due to ties. You only had one player that was negative in terms of strokes gained par 4. You had a 9.4 from Carlos Ortiz, and your winner was right behind him. And some pretty strong correlation. You have Ricky, who was a middling finish at 40th, but some pretty strong correlation otherwise. 6.4. 4.6, 8.4, and then you only have one here, it's a 2.1. So an 8.4 here, but you have a Lucas Herbert that missed the cut. Strong above him, but then a miscut and some more miscuts here. Now this one was your cut makers. Not a whole lot of upper end finishes, but you had your cut makers in the 400 to 450. And 350 to 400 was a lot like the 450 to 500. You had some strong performances, but you had some miscuts up here too. So honestly, well, it is the lowest number of the total too, though. Boy, that's tough. I would think it's the 450 to 500. 2021 par fours. Again, just look at the dominance from the players that finished in the upper part of the leaderboard. Just dominance of par fours. Your winner and your T3 led in strokes gained par 4. And you don't see a whole lot of high double-digit numbers here. Let's see. 5.9, 4.5. 4.6, 3.2. So 350 to 400 was the highest in 2021. Very interesting. You had some cut makers. You had some decently high performances, but nothing that screams extreme correlation. Now this is very strong up top, and it's the lowest or the smallest of the numbers. Okay, there's the most correlating right there, the 450 to 500 in 2021 so far. That's pretty strong. Yes, you had Kyle Stanley, a middling finish. Ollie missed the cut, but boy, everyone else above them, the top 10 or so in terms of 450 to 500, that's very strong. Finally, we'll take a quick look at 2020. Par fours. Again, just very, very important. You had two players that were negative 0.8. But I mean, look at these numbers: 14.2, 12.2, 12.2, 9.2. It's just par fours. So very important. You had a 5.2, a 4.5, a 7.3. Definitely not this one. Like 350 to 400. It's very, very strong. So we're definitely going to be looking at par fours total. Not sure. My gut tells me that it's the 450 to 500. But again, put it in chat, put it in the comments. What do you think about these par fours? Are any of these lengths the most important or the dominant that you see? So from July 1st forward, your top par 4 performers have been Tony Finau, Andrew Putnam, Maverick McNeely, Ben Griffin, Thomas Dietrich, Victor Hovland, Brandon Wu, Taylor Montgomery, Brendan Todd, and Matt Wallace. I had to skip a couple of players. McCarthy is withdrawn. and Taylor Moore is withdrawn. Let's see. Going across here, like Tony Finau just dominating all of the links of the par fours. He's just dominating the par fours in general. Putnam has been dominating the longer ones. Interesting. Ben Griffin has been dominating the shorter ones. Dietrich has been very good at the shorter ones. Taylor Moore, he's withdrawn. Never mind. Brandon Wu's been very good at the very long par fours. Okay. Again, I'm leaning 450 to 500, but I'm not terribly sold on it. It could be 450 to 500 and 350 to 400. It could just be all par fours, but a lot of emphasis on strokes gained par four. We'll see. Finally, we're going to look at par fives. There are 2 that measure here, 1 that measures here. We saw that from the course breakdown, just the par fives are just extremely important. You're going to have to score on these. And it looks like it's all coming from the 550 to 600. Let's see. Again, the top 19 due to ties. Or excuse me, top 21. You have one very poor performance here from Andrew Landry. But otherwise, minus 1/2, minus 1/2. Most of the negatives in the 500 to 550 is shallow. 1.7 and 0.7. But look at all the missed cuts here that performed well on this par 5. That's not good. Whereas here, you had some higher finishes and a missed cut, but you also had a lot of your top 10s up in here. So 550 to 600 was it last year. Yep, 550 to 600. So I'm going to be focusing on the 550 to 600 par 5s this week at El Camaleon. So your top performers on par 5s, 550 to 600 yards since July 1st have been Justin Lauer, Aaron Wise, Cameron Champ, Emiliano Grillo, Tony Finau, Adam Hadwin, Jason Day, Ben Taylor, Taylor Montgomery, and Grayson Sigg. So there's a look at the data from Fantasy National. Let's move on over to Microsoft Excel very quickly. I went ahead and highlighted a few of some possible outliers here. So just to give us an idea, here is what percentages are saying and their importance relative to other full field courses. You have distance not mattering at all, fairways being a lot. Again, I'm still leaning towards the good drives gained. Eagles don't matter at all. Birdies and bogeys fairly close. I am leaning heavily towards the birdies. We see the par 3s, again, just they don't matter. But it's the ones that do, it's the 150 to 175. But I still have my doubts on whether they are really this important. Par 4s, really darn important. And it's starting to make a little bit of sense here with the 350 to 400s. We saw that it was either this range or this range. So let's take a look here. That gives us an idea of what some of these percentages are. Let me go back and remove these outliers, whether they are high or low. Some of these are off the screen. I apologize, but anything in green is a low outlier, meaning that number should rise. Red is the opposite. So if I remove all those, now let's get a feel for what we see. So distance didn't change. Fairways become more important. Good drives is now just at 5.5%. So it had a high outlier. Okay. Still thinking good drives gain, but it's more so in the fairways than the greens portion of good drives. But I'm still leaning towards good drives. Might do a little bit of fairways gain. I'm not sure. Looky here, we removed some outliers, and birdies actually became less important. Bogeys became more important. Again, still leaning towards birdies just because it's an easy course. But that is interesting to note. Par threes didn't change in terms of the total. These are roughly the same. This one stayed the same. Look at par fours. That stayed the same, but that number increased. So yeah, I'm still probably thinking these two. I'm probably thinking these two ranges if I'm going to separate out any in the par fours. And then quite clearly the par fives is the 550 to 600. So that's a look at what the data is showing in terms of players who finished in the top 30. Let me change this before I forget, because I definitely will. Okay, so now to wrap up, or the penultimate thing to look at would be the early look file and get a feel for who has been doing well at these particular metrics that we are keying in on this week. First thing I want to look at, I'm going to do good drives gained, but fortunately it is right next to fairway, so we can get a good look at both. In fact, I'm just going to skip distance. It's not that big of a deal. All right, good drives gained. You see Brennan Todd, who has played this event exceptionally well. He's been very good at good drives gained. Zach Blair, 5.8. Now, Ryan Moore has not played this event well, but he's done well at good drives. Not so much in the fairways. His has been more so in greens. Billy Horschel, your strokes gained total leader in the past 5 years here at El Camaleon. Adam Long has played this event immaculately. JJ Spawn, Ryan Armour's played well. Matt Kuchar's played well. So these guys have played well, have done generally very well at good drives gained. That makes me feel quite a bit better about that. Let's sort on. Let's do birdies and bogeys, actually. And I'm going to sort by finish, smallest to largest, get a feel for birdies versus bogeys. So anyone, and this will include anyone who has only played it once, but anyone who has averaged a top, we'll say 35. Averaged a top 35. This average here comes to a 2.4 in the birdies. Bogeys is a 2.5, so again, very, very close. Let's see, eyeballing it here, there's a 5.2. There's a 5.5. Again, pretty darn close. Brendan Todd has been slightly better in the bogeys. Adam Long, birdies. 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 Bogeys. Trying to get a feel for the players who have played it 3, 4, 5 times, what they've been doing. Birdies. Bogeys. Roughly even. Birdies. It's close. It's close. Again, I'm still leaning birdies gained, but it's close. Par threes. Let's, before I sort on the specifics, let's just take a look here. Again, that same group that has averaged a top 35. Strokes gained par 3, that's an average of a 0.5. That is very, very small. Par 4s, that's an average of a 4.6. Par 5s is an average of a 1.0. So you can see just the amount of weight the par 4s are carrying, how little the par 3s matter. But let's see the 150 to 175 par 3s. Maybe there is a distinct feature there for these players that have been playing this event well. There's Danny Lee. Wierenski hasn't played played this tournament too bad. Same with Norlander. There's Doug Gim. Now, Glickix played this event awful, but he's been good at the 150 to 175 par 3s. John Huh, Tyler Duncan, Billy Horschel, Matt Kuchar. Okay, mixed bag here, I would say. Brendan Todd, Adam Long a little bit further down. Let's take a look at par 4s and get a real good feel for these par 4s. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to sort on the finish. I think that's probably just the easiest. Apologies for jumping around. Keep changing my mind. Let's see. Brendan Todd has been just good at everything, but he's been better on the shorter ones. Adam Long has just been good at all of them. More so the medium length. Let's see. Matt Kuchar, to be expected, better at the shorter ones. Danny Lee, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. McNeely, the 450 to 500. Billy Horschel, the shorter ones. Damon, not really the strongest on par 4s. Danny Willett's been shorter. That's only one time. So a little bit of this, a little bit of everything here. Russell Knox on the longer ones. Okay. Doesn't look like to be a one-way fits-all or catch-all category there in terms of which par 4s to play, as long as you're just playing them all well. Then finally, the par 5s, you can see, you know, a 3.9 and 3.7 of it comes into this length, 3.7 and 3.8 of it in the 550 to 600, 3.7 out of 3.9. It's just all in the 550 to 600. So this, because we know it's the only length, I will sort on that length specifically. Let's see, Scheffler. There's Victor Hovland, who's performed very well at this length of par 5s. Cameron Champ. There's Billy Horschel. Rory Sabatini's played this event very well. KH Lee, a little bit less so. Pat Gazire, former winner here. Tony Finau, Nick Taylor, Scott Piercy. All these guys have played this event pretty darn well. JT Poston. So there's a look at some of the players and the metrics in which they have been performing well here at El Camaleon. Return you to the lowest finish. But the last thing we're going to cover tonight is the mixed condition model from last year that I had for the Mayakoba. See how it performed, see what kind of percentages we're going to gain back and maneuver and all that. So here, I would say this was a decent mixed condition model. Victor Hovland was number 5, ended up winning. In fact, 4 of my top 5, all top 15. This was an all or nothing type result oriented mixed condition model. I had a lot of high finishes and a lot of missed cuts here in the top portion. So again, that's why I'm saying it's decent. I mean, I did have a lot in terms of top 15 or upper leaderboard success, but I also had some missed cuts in here. Let's see where I put my percentages. I had 15% in strokes gained approach. Makes sense, especially since we don't have shot length data. I was very much, I still am a very much strokes gained approach preferred player. 15% par 4s, that feels a little light. Probably will want to up that. There's 10%, 20%, 25% I'm getting back because of not doing anything in terms of strokes gained total. But, these did play very well, especially the easy to par and the total, easy to par and the short. We'll definitely be critiquing this tomorrow, seeing how this rated out in terms of results. I did this for the Bermuda, and it worked out pretty well in the sense that I looked at short and windy in last year's Bermuda model, and that was pretty strong. Even though I don't use any strokes gained total this year, so there's 25% I'm gaining back. Look here, I went birdies are better, easy to par. Okay, that looked like it held up okay. I had 10% good drives gained. Par 3s at 10%. That feels a little heavy. Don't know how much I'm going to put in par 3s. I also had 5% in putting, 5% around the green, 5% in par 5s. Okay, so I know I'm getting 25% back. I am in similar wavelengths as last year. These good drives gained. These birdies are better. Or now, birdies gained. Don't think I'm going to do birdies are better, but birdies gained. Need to up the par 4 percentage. Probably decrease the par 3 percentage. But thanks for tuning in, watching and listening. Always appreciate it. Reminder that I will be live tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, over on Twitch. We've got a lot going on. I will be doing my rookie rankings. I will also be finalizing a little bit of my mixed condition model. I will be also taking a look at Wind Finder. I haven't done that yet. And wind can absolutely play a factor here at El Camaleon, so I'll be doing that tomorrow as well. James, thanks for watching via Twitch chat. Always appreciate it. Again, apologies that my stream cut off right, out of the blue. I could not get back on Twitch after it crashed, so apologies for that, but we'll definitely be there tomorrow morning, and then I will be also back on tomorrow afternoon. Much more laid back. Going to start trying to do some side content, some gaming, much more laid back type stuff. But for the golf analytics, 10:30 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning. So thanks for tuning in and watching and listening, everyone. I always appreciate the support. Hopefully I have given you some metrics, some players, some things to think about in your research as we prepare for the DFS slate this week for the Mayakoba. So for all the wagers you've made this week for the Mayakoba, for any of the wagers you're thinking about making this week at the Mayakoba, until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.